Okay, let's get started. So, yesterday we started our discussion with something called as loops, right? So, what do you mean by loops? See, instead of writing the same piece of code, the same line of code again and again, okay? Instead of writing the same piece of code again and again, it will execute the same code repeated number of times. It repeatedly execute the same code. Okay, so that is the reason why we started using something called as loops. Okay, so that is what we discussed. And repeatedly, it will execute the code. Okay, so in loops, first loop is we started discussion with count. Okay, so what do you mean by count? See, if you wanted to create a multiple resources, okay, multiple identical resources, please remember this word, multiple identical resources with bit changes, only few changes. There are no, not complex changes, only yesterday we created, right, same AMI ID, only AMI ID was changing but not the instance type, nothing, only with the bit changes. Okay, identical resources. At that point of time, we are going to use something called as count. I showed you how to use a count. Direct use count is equal to 3, right? And count is equal to count dot index, var dot count dot index, that variation. And we also discussed about how to use within name block, all those things, right? So this is all about your count. Now, there is another loop. There is another loop known as for loop. Second one is something called as for each. Okay, this is the second loop. Now, what is the use of this loop? Again, you are going to create a resources without repeating the same line of code. Now, without repeating these two resource blocks, I'll use only one block. Using one block, what I'll do, I'll create 3 resources. Execute the same block first time, create one resource, execute the same block for the second time and execute the resource, execute the same block for third time and create the resource. That is what the meaning of loop. Okay, so now there is a loop known as for each. When to use for each? See, if you wanted to create a resources, if you want to create a resources which are not identical, that is the reason I am telling you that remember this word, which are not identical. I'm creating a EC2 instance. In this EC2 instance, I'm also changing my AMA ID. I'm also changing my instance type. I'm also changing my key pair. I'm also changing my instance name. All the changes. There are so many changes associated with my EC2 instance. So during that time, you can go and use something called as for each. Okay, so when there are the resources which you wanted to create as an identical resources, same kind of resources, then you go for count. When there are some resources which you don't wanted to use the same properties, same configurations for that resources, you wanted to use different things, different properties of that resource. So during that time, you go ahead and use something called as for each. Okay, so now so now let us see how to use this. Uh, uh, uh. See, first what happens in for loop, for each. Now let us create one resource instead of doing this. What I wanted to create? I wanted to create a resource. What resource I wanted to create? What resource I wanted to create? I wanted to create AWS-IAM users. I wanted to create IAM users, the same like yesterday. Okay. So what is the name of that resource? Yes, users. Users. Then this one. Then I'm going to use something called as for each. Let us end this. Then come back to this. Let us complete our entire uh, basic structure first. This is my for each, right? Each. The next one, what I'll do, I'll create a variable IAM user, IAM users, then comes type is equal to list, and default EFAULT is equal to some names, Manoj, Pawan, Jaipal, then Roldar Nagarjun, right? Then Sanjay, some names, some 5 resources I am creating. See, all are of the different type here, correct? And I'm just ending this. Now, how to refer these values? How to refer these values here, right? That is the next thing. See, what happens when you use for loop? For each is equal to, let me write it first. For each is equal to var dot IIMUs. Okay, sorry here. Var dot IIMUs, just like other variables reference. Okay. Now, what happens whenever you store these values? Var is equal to C. What happens when you store A is equal to 5? The value 5 is assigned to a variable known as A. So what is the value of A now? A value is 5. Just like that, now all the values which are stored in my variable, whatever the values stored here, all are here, right? So these values now stored in your for loop. In order to access each and every value from this for each, what do you need to do? You need to use something called as each dot value. That's it. Sir, everybody understood this? Simple. Please remember, don't go into the technical details. See, whenever this is my variable, just like referring to your variable var.iam user, okay, what happens? You are assigning a value to your for each loop. And now what does your for each loop consist of? Your for each loop consists of values. What values? All these values. Now, if you wanted to refer this value for creation, each and every user creation, then what I need to do, I just need to use each is a keyword dot value. Okay, directly you're using the single value, or you're picking one value here, first value, second value, third value, just like that. Okay, so that is the use here. For each, just like assigning a value, you're assigning it to your for each loop. And let me show you this. If this is your for each, now first value, second value, third value, fourth value, or fifth value. First, what your for each loop will do, it will pick the first value. It will pick Manoj, and it will execute this entire block once. Once it is done with Manoj user creation, again it will create same block, but what it will change? It will change the name. Manoj is done. Now go to Pawan. Pick the Pawan value from for each loop. Okay. Once it is done, next what I should do? Should once the user creation is done, just move to the third user, same block again, but with the different value. Just Jaipal. Just like that, it will keep repeating. Okay. So this is how your loops work. Instead of creating or writing the same code again and again, just create one resource block and execute the same block for as many times as you want. How many times you wanted to create those resources? That many times, right? So that is the advantage. Now let us execute this. Where is this? CD Terraform. What is there here? Okay. mkdir users. Why? Permission. Okay. So see users. Users. I'm just creating a separate folder for creating that. It's not required, but I'm segregating those values. That's it. Nothing else here. Okay. vi main dot f. Okay. Insert. Control C. Paste. Insert. Done. Vi variable dot df. Terraform minute. Sir, any doubt? Yeah, I've done. Invalid multi-line string. Okay, see, yesterday somebody asked me, right? If you are not providing this, what happens? vi variable.tf list of string. Sometimes it will work, sometimes it will not. Right. Why? IAM users. IAM users. Okay, I forgot to explain you one more problem here. See, whenever you started using for each loop, see, if you're directly using your variable, just like this, what we are doing here, if you're directly using this here, your Terraform directly, your Terraform directly, it will not support for your list. Your for each loop, your for each loop directly, it will not support for a list type of variable. Okay, it is not supporting directly. So what do you need to do here? You need to convert this list variable. I am is a list user, right? What do you need to do before using? You need to convert it to set variable. To set, just writing the to set. That's it. Nothing else. Directly will not support. That is the other difference between your count and for each. I missed that. Where is this? Vi main.tf insert to set for init IO. One string may not be split over multiple lines to produce. Why? What I did? Okay, the variable IAM users type list default is equal to Manoj for okay. Manoj Sanjay. That's perfect fine, right? Mm-hmm. Happen name is equal to each dot value. Do you see anything wrong here? I don't see anything
Sir,
wrong.
for Nagarjun, there is no, I mean, double quote.
Okay. Here.
This one, I think.
Yeah. I got. Okay. VI variable dot here. I missed it, huh? Oh yeah, thanks, bro. Okay. Terraform plan, not required. Terraform apply, hyphen auto, hyphen approve. See, somebody please tell me what happens when you execute a command known as Terraform plan. Hmm? What happens?
Shows the dry
Uh, Jivan, your voice is breaking actually.
sir, it shows the dry run.
Dry run. Yes. Dry run, fine. And what is the other thing happens there? Hmm? See, whenever you execute Terraform plan, it creates actually a graph. It creates, see, I simply I did not explain you these things. I will check this is a okay. See what it will do. It will create something called as a graph. That dependencies we discussed, right? First, it will identify those dependencies, which are all independent resources, which are all dependent resources, right? How to get uh, that graph, that we'll see. I did not explain you all those things in the initial days. It's kind of a quite advanced things. So that's the reason. It whenever you execute Terraform plan, it will internally create a plan. How you usually create for what is that? Creating your houses, right? Plan. That plan it will create and store it as a one diagram. That I'll show you maybe in 2 or 3 days. Okay. So region is equal to why is this US hyphen east hyphen one? Single. Why it is wrong with this? AWS hyphen IAM hyphen users. I might have made a mistake while copying. I did not copy it. Read. Really main.yf. VI resource AWS hyphen IAM hyphen users. Same thing here. Wait. IAM search. Same thing. Why? Plan. Okay. Terraform apply. If auto, if approve. Okay. So now 5 users are created. If you see here, it's this. Right. Just come here, search for IAM. See, now we have just started creating IAM users. Going forward, create IAM user, attach a policy, and attach a role to that person. And download your, what is that? Access keys and secret keys. See, now all these things are created. But the major concept here you need to remember is your for each loop. Instead of writing multiple resource block with the help of single resource block, we started creating multiple resources. Right? This is the first example. Any doubts here? Okay. So let us do the same thing, but with the help of map variable. Okay. I'll just close this here. Same example. But what I'll do, instead of using a list, now I'll use map variable. Okay. So variable IAM users, just copy the same thing. I'll change the values. Variable IAM users, just remove this. Okay. List in place of list, write it as map default within curly braces. First is user one. Who's user one? Manoj is the user one. Next user two. Who's the user two? Okay. User two is Jaipal. Okay. Next user three. Who is user three? Nagarjun. Who is user four? User four is Sanjay. User five is Suchitra. Okay. Now we have created a two map variable, and which is a single map variable which is holding 5 different values. See, whenever if you are using a map variable, it is not required to use, or it is not required to convert it into set variable. You can directly use it. Okay. You need to use this. You need to convert this value to set variable when it is a list type. Now this is not a list type. You can directly use those values. Okay. Remaining everything remains same. No other values. Okay. Just I'm changing these values. Control C. Okay. So anybody have any doubt here? Why I am using two set and why I'm not using two set here? Just because your for each loop doesn't support your list variable directly. That is the reason I'm converting into set variable and then I'm using it. But in the case of map, your for each loop directly supports your map variable. So that is the reason I'm not using your toSet variable here or toSet function here. Okay. So I think that is clear for everyone. Let me destroy the users, right? Terraform destroy. Auto.
Sir.
Yes, please.
Sir, in map, there is no equal sign.
Equal sign. Sorry. Colon. Right. Thanks.
Colon.
Yeah. Even I miss sometimes. Thank you. vi variable.df. Right. Just delete all the lines. Insert. Okay. Now vi main.df. What is the one single change we need to do here? Just remove the toSet and your curly your parenthesis. .im users, right? Then done. Terraform apply. Open auto. Approve. Okay, that's created same 5 users as you can see here. Same, just refresh. See, it has created again 5 users, but now how it has created? It has created with the help of map variable is creating. One is with the set variable, one is with the list variable. Just because list variable is not directly supported by for each loop, now we converted that into set variable and we are using it. Okay, but in map directly supports your for each directly supports your map variable, so we are directly using it. Okay, so this is the one basic example for your for each loop with the help of list and map. Fine. So now what we'll do, sir, any doubts here before I move to the next things? Anyone? Okay. Just give me a second. I'm stopped sharing my screen. 1 minute. Get this. One second, please. Okay. Hmm. Just a second, please. I missed something. Okay. If you see here, what we'll do, sir, policies also can directly created by Terraform. Yes, sir, you can also create those policies. Okay. So now if you see here, what is happening? Now I wanted to create a multiple resources.
Sir, we cannot see your screen, sir. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Okay. Sorry for that. Okay. Now what I wanted to do, just let me come down. I wanted to create a 3 different EC2 instances with a different configuration. That is, this is my first EC2 instance. This is first EC2 instance with different AMI, a different instance type, and a different name, all these things. And I wanted to create another EC2 instance with all these properties are different. Again, another EC2 instance with all these properties are different. Okay. So now, which is the preferable variable or which is the preferable this one to use? Which is a preferable loop to use? Any idea, sir? I wanted to create 3 different EC2 instances with 3 different configurations. Right? Now, whenever the word comes, different configuration, different properties, then you should go for each. And with help of for each, you're going to create. But please tell me, with the help of for each, which variable you're going to use, whether you're going to use a list variable or map variable, which is preferable to use? See, if you are using a list variable, it is going to be very complex. And as you already know, for each loop directly doesn't support your list variable. I just showed you for the small example how to use a list variable. Okay. In preferable conditions, the best practices, you should never use list variable along with for each. It is not preferable. Only if it is a small things that you are creating with the help of for each loop, then fine. Here you are going to create some complex thing that we'll see now. Okay, in that case, it is not advisable to use your list variable. Always prefer to use map variable with the for each loop. Okay, so now let us create one variable. Now what I'm doing, just explain that. Now I'll create a variable. What is that variable? I'll call it as EC2 instances. Then what is the type of this variable? Sir, please observe for 10 minutes. Map. Now what I wanted to do, instead of creating 3 different variables, one variable for AMI, that is variable AMI, and store the all AMIs in this variable. This is my one variable. And again, I wanted to create another variable for instance type. Okay. Again, I am going to create another variable. And again, I'm going to create another variable for name of the EC2 instance. How many variables I need to create? 3 different variables. Okay. As you already know, we need to implement a concept known as try. Do not repeat yourself. Right? So you're creating 3 different variables. So instead of doing that, now I'll show you how to store 3 different variable values, inside a single variable. Okay. Instead of creating 3 different variables for storing multiple values, now with the help of single variable, you can able to store all these 3 different values. That is what I am trying to do. Okay. So for doing that, For doing that, what you just need to do, map and define whatever the values that you wanted to store. Map object and inside curly braces, what are the values that you wanted to store, sir? I wanted to store AMI. AMI is of what type? AMI is a combination of something like this, right? AMI 1803 BA, something like this. So here you can able to see characters. At the same time, there are numbers. If both the characters plus numbers are there, then we call it as a string, right? If there are only numbers 18034 something like that, then we'll call it as a int. Okay, int data type. Along with the number 183.045, if you see this decimal point, then we call it as a float or double. You don't need to remember, just for your information. Okay, if there are group of characters just like this, just say Sachin. Sachin is a group of characters. This is one character, A is a one character, all those things. Then we call it as a string, right? And if there is only one character, A, B, C, D, single character, then we call it as a just a character. Single alphabet, then we call it as a character. Group of alphabets, we call it as a string. Or group of, it is combination of alphabets plus a numeric values. Again, we call it as a string. Any number without decimal point, we call it as int. Any number with the decimal point, we call it as a float or double. Okay. Now, AMI is a combination of this one, where alphabetical values plus your numbers, right? Next one is instance type. Instance hyphen type is equal to, again, it is going to be my string t2 dot micro. Number is also there. Your character value is also there, right? Instance, yeah, NSTANSC. Spelling is correct, no? Okay. Next is name is equal to, again, name is also might be combination of numbers and values. So it is also going to be string. Just close this. Parenthesis, double colons. Okay. Now start defining the default values. default default is equal to how to create a map variable using curly braces, right? And what is the first value that you wanted to store? First value is EC2 instance -1. This is my first value, first instance. And what is the first instance values? First instance values are AMI is this one. I'll copy. Then my instance type, instance -type is equal to, I'll also copy paste this value. Then name. What is the name for this? Then close this and comma. This is the first value. These are the values for your first EC2 instance. Okay. Then same thing, just copy. What are the values for your second EC2 instance? EC2 instance 2. There will be some AMI ID. There will be some instance type. There will be some other name. What are the value for your third EC2 instance? Same. EC2 3. Okay. So now let us copy this values first. AMI ID. Where is this? AMI ID. First is Ubuntu machine. AMI ID, Control V. Done. Instance type is t2.micro. Name is EC2 instance -1. I'll copy the same thing to other two things. Control V, T2.micro. See, I'm creating T2.micro. Even if you want to change that value, you can change that. T2.nano, T2.large, X large. It cost me more money, right? So instead of that, I'm just creating T2 micro for all the EC2 instances, right? And this one also same name. Here it is 2 and here it is 3. Control C, Control V, and here it is 3. Okay. And what is the AMI ID for second EC2 instance? Second EC2 instance AMI ID is Amazon Linux. Control C. Where is this? Here. This is my second. Third one is my Red Hat. Okay. So now we have successfully defined all the variable values and just close this last block. 1 colon, second close and third close. How many closes? 3 close. 1 for this. And here it is closed. Here also it is closed. Default is also closed. And 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 are closed and one more. I think 3 are enough. Okay. Everything looks fine now. Now we'll start writing our resource block. Okay. So how to create a resource block for this? Same thing. Resource. What you are going to create? AWS hyphen instance. You're going to create a EC2 instance and provide any name. EC2 hyphen instances. Right. Then what do you need to use? I need to use a for each loop. For each, for underscore each. If you're not using underscore, it will not work. For each is equal to, how to refer the values? Var dot your variable name, right? EC2 instances. Control C, Control V. Okay. Next, how to refer your AMI value? AMI is equal to each dot value dot, this time I am storing a value in single variable, right? So you just need to refer this value here, each dot value dot AMI. And next one is instance type. Instance hyphen type is equal to each dot value dot, what is the next thing you need to use? Same thing, instance type. Okay. Next one is I'm providing a names to this. Tags is equal to name. See, here n must be capital. Name is equal to each dot value dot name. This name. Okay. Now just close this twice. See, let me explain this again. Why I am creating this kind of things instead of creating multiple variables. If you wanted to store one AMI, if you wanted to store 3 different AMIs, what we used to do earlier, we used to create one variable. Inside that, we used to create these 3 AMIs. If you wanted to store instance type, what we used to do, we create one variable block known as instance type and use this store these values. Name also same thing. I was creating 3 different variables, right? So instead of that, now what I'm doing, I'm storing all these 3 values in a single variable known as EC2 instances. Name might be anything, but the concept here is you can store multiple values inside a single variable. How you need to store? It is quite different. It is not a direct process. First, you need to define what are the values that you wanted to store inside this map variable. Now I wanted to store AMI, string instance type, and name. Along with that, you also need to tell what is the type of that value that you're storing. Okay. Now, if I'm storing some number, then just provide the name. Let's say you're storing some numbers. I'll call it as some number. Number is of type what? It is of type integer. Correct? You need to do this. I'm just deleting this. Okay. Now, once this part is done, what is the next part? You need to start providing the default values, just like our earlier examples. But here, what are the values for your first EC2 instances? These are my values, and those values must be defined inside your curly braces. And if you have a next value, then use comma and start providing the next values, EC2 instance 2. EC2 instance 2, then different values, then EC2 instance 3, then different values. If there are no values after your third instance, do not use comma. Okay. So any doubts here, sir, before we execute this? Here, where is my provider block? Okay, I deleted it. Fine. Provider, yes. Any doubts from anyone? Did you understood this concept? Region, US, one. Right. So let me copy this. vi main.tf. Okay. Insert, paste. Next one is this part. Control C. vi variable.tf. Terraform plans. First execute Terraform validate because it's a big script, right? There might be mistakes. Okay. Terraform plan. Terraform plan. First point, it will show you what are the resources it is going to create before actually it is creating. That is the first point. And second point, it is kind of a dry run. That is the same point. Third point, it will create a graph. It will create a graph, and the same graph has been used by your Terraform apply when it is going to create those resources. Please add this point. I know I did not included this in the initial classes. Keep on going, I'll adding some more points to that. Okay, so that is the thing. So Terraform apply hyphen auto hyphen approve. Okay, see, it has started creating these EC2 instances and it has started picking different values. Okay, first it is deleting. Oh, I did not delete those users. Huh? Fine. See, it has created 3 different instances and it has destroyed our earlier 5 users we created, right? Those users it has destroyed. Now let us come back and see here. Where is this? See, EC2 instance 1, EC2 instance 2, and EC2 instance 3 with 3 different resources, instance ID, all those things. Okay, they are still into initializing state, that's fine. But the point here is This is the way of storing, how to store multiple variable values using a single variable. This you please go back and practice today. Okay. In some of the things you might be using this. It's very easy. Just like defining your map variable, you are defining along with some values. What are the values that you wanted to store? Usually what you will do, sir, usually you will just write it as a second, where it went. Usually variable name, then type is equal to map. Then you will start defining your default values. Correct? This is what you will do. But now, once you define these values, once type is equal to map, then you are just adding some more values, whatever the values that you wanted to store, multiple values that you wanted to store, right? Those values you define here, my AMI, my name, then that's fine. You define those values. Once that is done, start providing the default values. Default is equal to whatever the values that you have. That's it. And start referring those values here. Each dot value dot name, each dot value dot instance type, each dot value dot AMI, same thing. Okay. So this is how you can play around these map variables. Please remember, if for each, whenever for each comes, what you need to use, always go for map variable. Even though you can use list variable, I'm not denying that, but always go for map variable. When it comes to count, when it comes to creating identical resources, go for count. That is the major difference between for each loop and your this one. Okay, so the major difference between your count and this one is, one second, here comes your count. Please adjust with my handwriting. Count and for each. Okay, so if you wanted to create a multiple resources, but what kind of multiple resources? Multiple identical resources. If you wanted to create, then that time you go for count variable. Okay. And when it will be used, if you wanted to, there is no complexity in your resource block. It is a straightforward method of creating your EC2 instances. That's like that. That is, the number of resources to create is known and doesn't need complex dynamic behavior. The resource block doesn't have too much of this one. What is that? Dynamic behavior, changing values. Okay, so that is the next one. And mostly these are the two differences: identical resources and fixed number of resources. Whenever you want fixed number of resources, at that time also you can use count. Okay, so when do you use var? You need to create the multiple resources with different configuration, different values. Okay, at that time you can start using your for each loop. Okay, the second scenario is the number of resources is dynamic. The values might be keep changing, the resource blocks might be keep changing. That is dynamic behavior, right? So at that time also you can start using your for each loop. Okay, so and yeah, almost that's it. Please remember these two differences. Okay, so any doubts here? Sir, for map we use colon, but here we used. Okay, let me explain that. See, where is this? This one. See, if you are writing the values in a key value format, single value are defining. then that time you start defining like this. Here, you are storing multiple values. It is not possible for you to store in a single variable, right? If you are writing key AMI, how it is possible? Whether can I store these values? It is not possible, right? So that is the reason we are storing inside a curly braces, and each value is separated by comma here. Just like your map variable, when you have some small values, less number of values, then you use this keep value pair. If you're storing multiple values in a single variable, then you use this curly braces concept, and each value must be separated by comma. Okay. Sir, anything here? Are you guys able to relate what we're discussing? Okay. See, till now, what are the things we discussed? We started a discussion with so many things, but state file, how many files we have created? We have created main.tf, variable.tf, output.tf, backend.tf, right? And along with that, we started our discussion with loops. In loops, we have count loop and for each loop. Then we discussed about local variables. Then we discussed about global variables. Inside your global variables, we discussed about list, we discussed about map, we discussed about output variable, right? Then we discussed about what are dependencies, implicit dependency, explicit dependency, how to create implicit dependency, how to create explicit dependency, right? And default dependencies, there are three dependencies. One is default, implicit, and explicit, these things. And we discussed about what is Terraform, how to use Terraform, what are the advantages of using Terraform, how to create an infrastructure, right? One is declarative approach, and other one is declarative and what is the other way, sir? I forgot that.
Imperative.
Imperative and declarative, right? What happens in imperative? You'll be using some programming language. You need to create some documents. It's not a cloud agnostic solution. It is not a scalable approach. Version or history cannot be tracked. So that's why we came into declarative approach. Here you can able to store the version, track the history. It is a scalable infrastructure, right? And you can able to get back to the previous infrastructure which is having, and it is a cloud agnostic solution, right? For that reason, then we started discussion about what are different files available in your Terraform. That is different blocks, resource block, provider block, correct? Then we added a new block known as data source block, local block, variable block. All these things we discussed, and we discussed about Terraform lifecycle, that is Terraform init, Terraform validate, Terraform plan, Terraform apply, Terraform show, Terraform destroy, all these values, right? And we started our discussion with yesterday, we had a discussion with the data source block, when to use data source block, when to use resource block. If you wanted to read a values which might be existing in which might be created in AWS manually, or which might be created using Terraform, but you need to read that value and use that value inside your resource creation. At that time, you will be using your data source block, right? Now, what is the use of resource block? If you wanted to create a new resource, new infrastructure into your AWS cloud, then you should go for your resource block. So these many things we discuss in almost in a 10 days gap. Okay, even some additions are there. How to override variable value, hyphen var file, hyphen, then we discussed about variable dot tf vars, then variable dot auto dot vars, right? All these things I explained. How to store the credentials, your access key and secret key, how to store these values. First one is you can store it as an environment variable. Second, it as a variable. Third, as a directly hard coding those values. Fourth is you can able to store this into a file known as dot bash rc or dot bash profile. Whether you can, I showed you this bash rc, you can also store this value in dot bash hyphen profile. This in this file also you can store, right? Other than that, you can also store values in ACM, Amazon, what is that? Security manager, ASM, right? Secret manager. You can also store those values and pick those values and store it here, use those values. All these things we discussed in these days, sir. Now we have some important concept from next class onwards that I'll be discussing from Monday. Okay. Tomorrow will not be having a class. Monday I'll provide a recorded session. Monday I'll give, but from Tuesday I'll not be providing the recorded session. Please do it for yourself. Or it's up to you how you wanted to do. But Monday I'll provide. From Tuesday it is going to be very something kind of advanced things that you will not get in the maybe in YouTube or somewhere like that. Okay. So that's the reason I'm not providing those things. It depends on you. Even if you're recording, please do not share with anyone. Please, sir. That is my humble request. Please do not share. Okay. So if there are no doubts, you can wind up the session. So thank you. See you all on Monday. Bye. I'll upload this session by today. Yesterday's and today's session. Yes, please.
Hello, sir.
Yes, please.
Sir, how to delete multiple lines, sir, in SSH well?
How to delete multiple lines?
That time will delete no this.
DDDD ಪ್ರೆಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂತ ಹೋಗೋದು ಮನೋಜ್ ಅಷ್ಟೇ, ಏನಿಲ್ಲ.
ಬರೀ ಡಿ ಅಷ್ಟೇನಾ ಸರ್?
Double D. Just click. Just keep clicking on D. Wait, I'll show you. Just give me a second. See here. If you wanted to create multiple lines, delete vi main.tf. Okay. See, just you must be in a escape mode first deleting. If I just click on double D, one line gets deleted, right? One line delete agutalva. Just D. Just keep clicking on D. It will delete all those files, all those lines. Sorry. Okay, so that is how. Okay, na? Okay, that's fine. Thanks. Thank you guys. See you on Monday. Bye.